Hi, I'm Susan Rutledge, and in this video, I'm feeling creative, so I wanted to work with seamless pattern brushes today. First, we're going to create a side tile that's pretty unique in and of itself, but we're not going to stop there. We'll create the start and the end tiles for it as well, so that if you apply the pattern brush to a stroke or any kind of an open path, the ends are going to look finished. We'll also apply it to an ellipse, and then I'm going to show you a way to recolor your pattern brush so that each time you create a different color, Illustrator automatically creates a new pattern brush. And finally, I'll show you how to take the design that you've placed on an ellipse and turn it into a pattern that you can apply to any shape and any size on your artboard. And if any of that sounds interesting, well, stick with me because I'm going to go through everything step by step. I'll start off making the design for the seamless pattern brush. I'll get the rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M, click on the artboard to open the rectangle dialog box and type in 4.5 inches for the width, tab down, type in 0.6 inches for the height, and say OK. Then I'll move to the Properties panel, click on the Color Fill icon to change the fill color to magenta. Then I want to remove the stroke. I'll get the Direct Selection tool, keyboard shortcut A, and I'm going to select the two right anchors on the object and move up to Object, Transform, Move. I'm going to leave horizontal set at 0, and for vertical, I'm going to type in -3, leave everything else the same, and say OK. I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'm going to move this down on the artboard, and then I'm going to make a copy of this object. I'll go back up to Object, Transform, Move. I'll type in 0 for horizontal. For the vertical, I'm going to type in -1, and then I'll press Copy. Now I'll select both of these objects and I'm going to reflect them. I'll get the Reflect tool, keyboard shortcut O, and press the Return key on my keyboard to open the Reflect dialog box. I'll leave vertical selected and I'm going to press Copy. Now I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'll select all of the objects, and I'm going to add an offset line to each one of these objects. So I'll come up to Object, down to Path, and I'll choose Offset Path. And it looks like I have a train wreck here, but actually Illustrator's just remembering the last time I created an offset, and what I'll do is instead of having 1 inch, I'm going to type in -0.08 and say OK, and that looks a lot better. Now while I have those offset pieces selected, I'll come back over to the Properties panel, click on the Color Fill icon, and I'm going to change the color to this lime green, and that's so I'm able to tell all of these pieces apart. Now I'll get the Zoom tool, keyboard shortcut Z, and move in so we can see all of the pieces for this next step. I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'll select the offset pieces and the outer pieces. Get the Shape Builder tool, keyboard shortcut Shift M, and I'm going to begin removing the outer magenta pieces around these objects. I'm not going to get the pieces that are in between the greens, just the outside part. I'll hold down the Option key and just come around and select each one of these. Got to be sure and get those little corners as well. And if you happen to get something selected that you didn't want to delete, just undo it with the keyboard shortcut Command Z and start back up again. We're almost finished here. And then I'm going to move to the inside here. We'll get these inside pieces and delete them as well. And then I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I just want to click on the artboard, deselect everything, and make sure I got all the pieces that I needed to removed. Everything looks good. I'll go ahead and select the pieces again. Go back and get the Shape Builder tool, keyboard shortcut Shift M, and what I'll do is create a lattice effect where some of the pieces are supposed to be going over other pieces and some under them, and I'll do that by joining some of these little pieces together and deleting others. I'll start in the top right, and this is going to be an over piece. So I'll click down with my mouse, drag across that piece, the pink, the green, the pink, and the green. Release my mouse and that becomes one piece. Then I'll hold down the Option key to remove this pink piece and this pink piece because this is going to be the under piece. Now we come to the next diagonal and it's going to be the over piece. So we'll click here and drag across here, and then we're going to hold down the Option key to remove the pink here and remove the pink here. Now we'll start in the bottom right, and this is going to be an under piece. So I'll hold down the Option key and click here to remove that piece, and click here to remove that piece, and the rest of this is going to be merged together as I drag across it. The next piece is going to be an over piece, so I'll click and drag across the little strip, the bigger strip, the little strip, the bigger strip, and release my mouse and then hold down the Option key to remove the little piece here and the little piece here. Get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and click on the artboard and you can see our completed design. I'll zoom back out, keyboard shortcut Command 0, and it's clear to me that the design is going to be way too large for a seamless pattern brush, but I'll leave it big for now so it's easier for me to see as I create the start and the end tiles. I'll select the objects and group them, keyboard shortcut Command G, and I'll move this up into the left corner. Then I'll make a couple of copies for my start and end tiles. I'll hold down the Shift and the Option keys and drag to the right. The Option key makes the copy. The Shift key keeps me in that same horizontal line. I'll release my mouse, then take my fingers off of the Option and the Shift keys and click on the artboard to deselect everything. Then I'll select again, hold down the Option key and the Shift key and drag one more time. And I'm going to drag until my smart guides tell me that I'm intersecting here. I'll release my mouse and then release the Option and the Shift keys and click on the artboard to deselect everything. Let's zoom in and see what it looks like close up. I think that's going to be fine, so I'll zoom back out, keyboard shortcut Command 0. I'm going to select this object, move over to the Layers panel, twirl this open, and I'm going to hide our main design so that I can spread out just a little bit. Now I'm going to have to ungroup these, keyboard shortcut Shift Command G, because I've got to remove some of these pieces. I'll select this little piece here and delete it, and I'll select this little piece here and delete it. Now what I want to do is create a nice straight line here and a nice straight line here. So I'll get the line segment tool, keyboard shortcut \, and I'll start here. When Smart Guides tells me I'm on the path, I'm just going to click down with my mouse and drag across to the next segment, and I'm going to stay right along that edge and release my mouse, and I'll do the same thing here. I'll click down with my mouse and I'm going to drag out a line. I want to make sure it's right along that edge, and I'll release my mouse and then get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and select all this end of the design. And I'll get the Shape Builder tool, keyboard shortcut Shift M, hold down the Option key, and I'm going to remove the pieces that I don't want and the line segments. So I got to get right in that little space here, in this space here, and in this space here. Get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'll click on the artboard to deselect, and that's looking really nice. So what I'll do is group this, keyboard shortcut Command G, and this is going to be our end tile. The end tile always points to the right. Now I've got to make a copy, so let me move this up into the top left corner. I'll hold the Option key down and drag a copy onto the artboard, and I'm going to reflect this object vertically so it points to the left. So I'll get the Reflect tool, keyboard shortcut O, press down on the Return key on the keyboard to open the Reflect dialog box. I already have vertical set here, and I don't need to make a copy. I've already got that, so I'll say OK. Then I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V. It's already grouped, so we're in business. I'm going to go back to the Layers panel, and I'm going to unhide the design that we have here. And our artboard is filling up, and that's okay because I'm going to select all these and it's time to resize them. I'll come up to Object, transform, and down to scale. And let's type in 35%, and I'll say OK. And then we can move this up in the top right corner, and we've got plenty of room for everything. Now it's time to create our first pattern brush. So I'll come up to Window, down to Brushes. I can also use the keyboard shortcut F5. I'll click here, grab the Brushes tab, and I'm going to drag and dock it next to the Layers tab on the right side of my artboard. Now when I know I'm going to be creating a number of pattern brushes, I want to clear the slate here. So I'll move to the top right corner, and I'm going to click on Select All Unused, and I'll come down to the bottom of the Brushes panel and click Delete Brush. Yes, I want to do this. So now I have a really nice open spot for all of my pattern brushes. To create the pattern brush, we start with the main repeating design. In this particular design, I don't think I'm going to need a bounding box, so we're going to just create it as is. I'll come over to the Brushes panel, and right at the bottom, I'm going to click on the new brush icon. I'll click on Pattern Brush and say OK, and then I'm going to name this Diagonals. I'll leave the scale set to fixed. I'm going to leave the spacing the same. I want to look at the outer corner tile, so I'll twirl down here, and I have some choices. I think I'm going to go ahead and change this to Auto Between, and you can see in the preview what that's going to look like. I'll leave everything else the same. I'm not going to change the colorization method, and I'll show you why in a few minutes, and I'll say OK. Now once the pattern brush is created, I'll click on the artboard to deselect the main piece, and we're going to add the end piece and the start piece. Now the end piece goes on the end. It's the one that points to the right, so it's pretty easy to remember. I'll select the design. I've got to hold down the Option key, and I just drag it to the end piece, and I'll say OK, and then I'm going to choose the Start tile. It goes next to the end piece. Hold down the Option key again, drag it and drop it right here, and say OK. Now I'm going to test this. I'll get the Line Segment tool, keyboard shortcut \, draw out a line, and click on our pattern brush. Get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and click on the artboard to deselect it. And that is looking absolutely perfect. So you can see now what I'm talking about by having a nice edge on the left and on the right side. So in case you want to use this pattern brush on an open path, it's going to look very nice and neat. We can also apply this to an ellipse. I'll get the Ellipse tool, keyboard shortcut L, and click on the artboard to open the Ellipse dialog box. And I'm going to type in 2.2 inches for the width, tab down and type in 2.2 inches for the height, and we'll say OK. I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and let's move this up just a little bit, and then click on the pattern brush, and we have a really nice design here. I'm just going to rotate it a little bit because I want this top point centered. So I'll get the Rotate tool, keyboard shortcut R, and I'm just going to drag it until it looks like it's right in the center, and then I'll release my mouse. Now I told you I was going to show you a really cool way to recolor your pattern brushes, and you're going to love what happens next. I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V. I'll select this line segment with the pattern brush, come up to Edit, down to Edit Colors, and choose Recolor Artwork. And then I want to move this over into the right side. And all I do is grab the color stop and move it around to whatever color I want, release my mouse. It changes the application of the pattern brush on the line segment, and Illustrator has created a new pattern brush with the new color. And I just think this is way cool because you could continue to do this and have a dozen different colored pattern brushes in a matter of moments. Well, let's click on the artboard to close that out, and I'm going to select our next object here, and we'll recolor this as well. I'll come up to Edit, down to Edit Colors, choose Recolor Artwork, and this time I'm going to try to get a nice fuchsia color. And I think that one might work real well right here. I'll release my mouse. I have the object changed, and I have a fuchsia pattern brush. Let's click on the artboard to deselect it. So now we're going to use this design which we created to make a pattern. So I'm going to select it, and I'll move up to Object, down to Pattern, and I'll choose Make. And we end up with designs all across our artboard and the swatches panel open because the design has been created here as a swatch. Let's move this out of the way a little bit and concentrate on the pattern options dialog box. If I want, I can give this a name, especially if I'm going to be saving it. For right now, we're going to move down to tile type. I'll twirl down and I'm going to choose hex by column. Now the designs are really close together, so I'm going to click on Size Tile to Art, and I'll type in 0.5 inches for the horizontal spacing, tab down and type in 0.5 inches for the vertical spacing, and press the return key. And that has these spaced out pretty nicely. Also, if I wanted to change the color of this design, all I have to do is go over to the swatches panel and click on a different color, and it's going to change, but I want to leave this the fuchsia color. So I'll close the pattern options, and I'm going to close the swatches panel. I can choose to save a copy if I want and give this a name as well. I'll just cancel out of that and then exit out of the new pattern design, and it's been added to my swatches panel. So I'll get the ellipse tool, keyboard shortcut L, click on the artboard to create an ellipse, and I'm going to type in 6 inches for the width, tab down, type in 6 inches for the height, and press the return key. Then I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and move this up into the top area of the artboard and click on the swatch here, and this applies our pattern. Now it's too big for the circle, but I can change that. I'll come up to Object, Transform, Scale, and I don't want to scale the circle, just the pattern, so I'm going to uncheck Transform Objects, and then I can scroll up and down with my mouse until I have just exactly the size I want, and then I'll say OK and click on the artboard to deselect it. I think I'm going to remove the stroke, so I'll move over to the Properties panel, and let's just say no fill here. Now if you decide that you want a fill color behind your pattern, there's a way to kind of cheat and get that as well. I'll click on the ellipse and copy it, keyboard shortcut Command C, and then I'll paste it in place, Shift Command V. I have 2 copies of this same pattern here. You can't see them because they're right on top of each other. I'll move over to the Layers panel, and we want to select the bottom piece here. Well, the top piece is going to be the one I just added, so I'll click right here and then move back over to the Properties panel, click on the Color Fill icon, and I can choose any color I want, and that's applied to the ellipse that's underneath the pattern. And then if I select both of them and group them together, keyboard shortcut Command G, I can move them around and they stay together. Well, I do hope that you've enjoyed this video and that you've learned some things about creating a seamless pattern brush, about recoloring your seamless pattern brushes, and about creating patterns with the designs that you've created. I invite you to subscribe to my channel and to click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my future tutorials, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye now.